Newly redrawn district maps in several states suggest good news for Republicans already heading into a favorable year in their race to win the congressional majority in 2022. Julia Manchester from The Hill joining us now to discuss what to watch for as we dive headfirst into next year's midterm season. Good morning to you, Julia.
Good morning, Adrienne. Thank you for having me.
You know what? I feel I would be remiss if I didn't ask you how you were doing. I know that you didn't have strong symptoms of COVID-19, but you did isolate. You were like in the family basement. I feel like I should check in. Are you good now?
You know, I am fantastic right now. I mean, I have a bit of a runny nose still, but it's still very cold here where I am in upstate New York. But for the most part, my symptoms are gone, and I've long passed that 10-day mark that was previously in place by the CDC as to how long I should quarantine. So I am going out more. However, still very much lying low. I do have lots of family around in upstate New York. Some of them are relatively high risk. So very much still following those important COVID protocols in terms of public safety, public health, wearing a mask, keeping my social distance and that sort of thing.
Okay, I just felt like it would be wrong for me to not get an update since you joined us when you were quarantined and everything. Good to hear you're feeling better. Okay, so Arizona and Virginia, as we get down to the brass tacks of it all, are releasing their new district maps. Obviously, both states have played an enormous role in shaping this year's politics. Arizona's drawn out election audit, and Virginia Republicans sweeping the recent off-year elections. That was a humongous deal. What do their new maps suggest might happen next year?
Well, in Arizona, and that's going to be a very much a swing state next year, we've seen that the maps slightly favor Republicans. However, we know that that was that redistricting commission said that they tried to do it as fairly as possible. So it seems like there's a slight advantage to Republicans in that state. In Virginia, that was a long saga in terms of this, redistricting commission. It eventually went to the Supreme Court because they could not agree on a map at the lower level. So in Virginia, the biggest takeaway, I would say, and you're hearing about this in the national media as well, in addition to Virginia state media, is that Abigail Spanberger, the congresswoman who represents the 7th district, her district, which used to include much of the Richmond area, the Richmond suburbs, has now moved to Northern Virginia. And at first, when you first hear that, you think, oh, Northern Virginia, it's a Democratic stronghold, it's blue. However, it's in rural Northern Virginia. So it seems like Abigail Spanberger could have, and she had this before going into re-election, a bit of a tough climb going into her re-election bid. That's important because she is one of the most vulnerable House Democrats going up for re-election next year. As for some of the other House districts in Virginia, Elaine Loria, who represents the Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach, Norfolk area, she also is facing a tough climb. And Jennifer Wexton, someone who represents Loudoun County, obviously Loudoun County has gotten quite a bit of attention.
Yes,
in the
it's
national
infamous now.
Yes, infamous now. She is now facing less of a tough climb than she did before, but she was still considered relatively safe. Some national Republicans were starting to turn their sights on her, but it seems like she is in a much safer spot now.
What about endorsements from President Biden or former President Trump? Is that even going to be talked about in the same way that it has been over the past couple of years?
I think it depends what district we're talking about. In heavily blue districts, obviously having the president come and campaign for that candidate if they need an extra boost is obviously a good thing. And in those heavy red districts, obviously President Trump coming in would be a good thing for that candidate campaigning. When you get into the swing districts, though, I think it really depends. If it's a Republican running for re-election in a relatively swingy district, I'm not sure how much President Trump could help that because he's more good at galvanizing the deep red conservative base. As for Joe Biden, I think it depends where his approval ratings are at the time. If the midterm campaign was really up in gear right now, I don't think we'd necessarily see Joe Biden coming to a lot of these districts because we've seen that he's been having so many issues. His administration has been having so many issues with this Omicron variant, and his approval ratings are down. So we'll really have to see what happens between now and the late summer and early fall as to how much these two characters are going to be playing a role in these districts.
Major characters. All right, Julia Manchester, thank you so much. Again, happy holidays, happy new year.
Thank you. Happy New Year, Adrienne.
Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to click on the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.